Thank you very, very much, Mary, and thank you, Ambassador Sands and Chair McMahon, for kicking us off. I want to pick up on manufacturing because I really enjoyed the first discussion there. One of the amazing things about the Trump administration and its America First policies was that not only did wages across the board raise, but on the factory floor, workers' wages raised faster and higher than managers. It really put the working American people first. Unfortunately, however, under Bidenomics, it's a different reality. So I want to turn to you, David, first and foremost, to get a pulse on manufacturing here in the Commonwealth.
Well, thank you. As was mentioned, manufacturing is about 500,000 jobs on the plant floor. It's $100 billion of value added every year. And manufacturing is critical to the well-being of our economy and our society because manufacturing is the sector that adds the most value. And as a result, manufacturing jobs have the best wages and benefits in the marketplace. So these are family-sustaining jobs for working people. Manufacturing also has the strongest multiplier effect on job creation. So it's not just what happens on the plant floor, it's all of the supply chain and distribution network and the vendors of industrial services. So, I mean, I'd say that the manufacturing sector, here in the Commonwealth has continued to, to move forward, but as is usually the case at a pace slower than the national average. There are a number of challenges. I think the foremost one is the workforce crisis. And certainly there are things that our friends at the federal level could do to de-stupidize the job training and workforce development system that, because of federal strings that are attached, it's dozens of programs across multiple cabinet departments. If we were able to give the states flexibility to reinvent how those dollars are deployed, it would make a lot more sense, be a lot more effective. In Pennsylvania, I'm convinced that there are hundreds of millions of dollars of efficiencies to be found.
De-stupidize, they're using the technical term. Yeah. Love it. So there are a variety of different pathways forward out of the quagmire that we're in at the moment. And one way forward that's been proposed is that of Governor Shapiro. So I want to talk about energy for a moment here. Governor Shapiro has proposed earlier this year the 35% by 2035 renewable energy standard for the state. He's also proposed a cap and trade system for electricity generation. Now, instead of exporting natural gas, it sounds like the governor is looking to import California's energy policy. California, that has some of the highest electricity prices. California, where the cap and trade system has added 27 cents on the gallon. That's according to the state of California. They're not my numbers. So I want to turn to some of our elected representatives. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'll start with you, Madam Senator. Tell us, what is your read of Governor Shapiro's plan, and what's the way forward?
Well, recently I spoke with Toby Rice, who is the president of EQT, and he literally goes all around the world talking about energy and natural gas and exporting freedom. That's exactly what we should be doing, because as has been said many times, Pennsylvania is one of the largest producers of natural gas. We could be producing 4 times what we're doing right now if it weren't for overregulation, permit debacles, DEP, which I lovingly call Department of Economic Prevention, or don't expect a permit. There are issues that we have. We literally keep putting up stumbling blocks in front of every industry, but in particular the energy industry. And when the cap and trade program that you talked about, it's called RGGI, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and Shapiro was campaigning early on and was saying to the environmentalists, yes, we absolutely need to do that. We've got to, make them pay their fair share. And to the industry, to our great trade unions, oh no, we can't have that. We can't have that. So he was elected, and he said, let the courts decide. Let the courts decide. It was in the Supreme Court. Well, they decided it was unconstitutional, as we said it would be. He's appealing it. So how do you encourage capital investment to the tune of billions and billions and billions of dollars and tens of thousands of great jobs if there are the sands are shifting all the time? You have nowhere to stand firmly. No one's going to do that. We're losing industry, and we're also, with that threat, the cost of energy has increased a lot since he was elected. And not only that, but because of the Biden administration making these projections of the pause on exporting natural gas, the moratorium on that. It's just been a disaster all the way around. Lastly, with the Governor Shapiro saying 30% reduction, I heard 40% to go green, reduction in carbon by 2032. That is going to double or triple the cost of energy in Pennsylvania in a very short number of years. It's going to be here before you know it. And everyone bases their expansion on what's happening in years to come. When they hear that the industry, any industry coming to Pennsylvania will be beaten like a piñata to pay for an excessive cost of energy, no one is coming to Pennsylvania. It is a disaster waiting to happen, and we're already seeing a lot of that. Nobody wants to invest in Pennsylvania. It is a lose, lose, lose for everyone.
You know, David, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, but Governor Shapiro seems to be the best governor Ohio and West Virginia have ever had. Because if you're looking to invest, go there. Please.
Sad to say, and it's again that in a free country, in a free economy, private sector investment decisions are voluntary, and that the General Assembly can't pass a law compelling people to invest in the Commonwealth and hire and operate and expand here. We need to make it the smart business decision for people to choose to come here, and that Pennsylvania's energy opportunity is one of the most powerful tools that we have to help bring that future forward. Pennsylvania has a competitive market for electricity. It was time-consuming and expensive to get there, but it has been a real policy victory for Pennsylvania, a victory for consumers, and of course our manufacturers consume large amounts of energy, and so this has been a net positive. And that the governor's plan is to overthrow our competitive market for electricity, to give away half the market to sources of his choosing, and that the problem is that several of those sources do not exist. The governor's plan is complete science fiction, and that I want to see the governor's office and the lawmakers sponsoring those bills to say which energy source is going to provide how much electricity by what point in time, because fusion technology hasn't been invented, that small modular nuclear does not exist in this country, in the private economy. The most recent one that was scheduled was in Idaho for 2030, but the financing broke down. So these technologies will not be in place to meet his mandate by the point in time. It's complete madness, and it needs to stop.
So amid the madness, let's turn to Reps Kale and Ham. What's a sensible way forward?
Yeah, I think where we got to start for an elected official, especially one that's running statewide, like Governor Shapiro, like President Trump is start with the premise that the world is a better place with Pennsylvania energy. We need energy policy that celebrates, that leverages, that gets the most out of our own natural resources. And it's a better place not just for our jobs in Pennsylvania. The Department of Energy came out with a study a couple years ago during the Trump administration that said there's upwards of 200,000 potential manufacturing jobs in Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, Panhandle of West Virginia because of the natural gas resources that we have here. And there's items that we need to follow through with in order for that to happen. There is incredible opportunity for jobs. It's also great for consumers, lower costs and goods for our families. With dealing with inflation, lower energy costs is so critical. It's great for our national security. We need to be energy independent, but it's also great for our allies. As Senator Bartolotta was talking about, we need to be energy dominant. Why is Europe dependent on Russia for natural gas when we have all of the energy that we can give them or sell to them right here? And finally, and this is a point that I think we need to be talking more and more about. Overall, it's one of the reasons why I really appreciate President Trump's energy policy, because he did celebrate American energy. He did celebrate Pennsylvania energy. But the final positive that we need to talk about often as well is it's good for our environment. It's good for our environment. Pennsylvania's natural gas is the cleanest natural gas in the world. It's the cleanest form of reliable energy in the world. If we want to get serious about reducing carbon emissions, We have to start doing things in America, in Pennsylvania. Our green tariffs, that I call them, the green policies that Governor Shapiro puts into place, that President Biden's putting into place, is doing nothing more than driving demand for Chinese pollution. And if we want to cut down that demand, what we have to do is start making goods again in Pennsylvania, start making goods again in America. And here in Pennsylvania, there are certain steps that we certainly could be taking. There's steps at the state level, like technical tax provisions, our net operating loss provisions, our permitting that Senator Bartolotta talked about, our energy policy, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, not punishing our manufacturers, the cleanest manufacturers in the world, and not driving demand for Chinese pollution. There's all kinds of things that we could do, but we have to start with the premise, as elected officials, that the world is a better place with Pennsylvania energy. And this idea that we're transitioning to renewables, I just don't buy it. I don't think we're in an energy transition. I think we're in an energy reformation. I think we're going to start talking more about carbon capture and future uses of fossil fuels and things like that. But this concept of a transition away from fossil fuels, and we should be ashamed of it, and we should be doing everything we can to step away, it's nonsense. We need to own it. We need to get the most out of it. We need to celebrate it, and we need to make a world a better place using it.
Yeah, we need to unleash Pennsylvania energy. And with that, we secure America energy independence. And look, the opportunity we have in here in Pennsylvania is limitless. And I was having a conversation with Oliver last night and then again today about the fact that, Pennsylvania right now is second in the nation for natural gas production. But there's no reason we shouldn't be number one. We could surpass Texas easily if we had regulatory reform, if we got permits out the door, if we had government out of the way. That's what we need to do. So we need to unleash Pennsylvania energy. We got to get pipelines in the ground. We got to get natural gas to market. And there are plenty of customers who want Pennsylvania natural gas. Boston would love to have Pennsylvania natural gas. And we've got to get it, to Europe, to Boston. Hundreds of thousands of jobs in this Commonwealth, directly and indirectly, are impacted by the natural gas industry. And so we have an opportunity to provide good paying jobs right here in this Commonwealth. And let's talk about the opportunity it's provided for our small family farms. So many farms were on the brink. They were talking about being done. 2010 timeframe, after a recession hit, things were really bleak for our farmers. And it was the natural gas industry that came here and saved a lot of family farms. Many farmers who were able to continue to operate today because of the industry. And so there is so much opportunity with the industry for Pennsylvania, but also for this nation and for our world. So we just got to do more to push back against the regulatory agencies, against permits being held hostage, and we've got to unleash Pennsylvania energy.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about farming, because natural gas is one of the largest single price inputs to fertilizers. When prices go up, when there's an absence of supply, you see the prices trickle through the economy across farms, but also in your local supermarket. It runs the gamut. So let's talk about pushing back on bad policy, especially at the federal level. One of the beautiful things about our federal system is that the federal government and the states can keep each other in check. And we've seen fantastic leadership. I'm a new Texan, so I'm going to say it. Out of Texas, Attorney General Paxton, fantastic job in holding the Biden administration and its wayward policies to account. We've seen leadership come out of West Virginia, push back against the EPA. What can America First leaders here in the Commonwealth do to push back and hold the federal government to account, Madam Senator?
Well, just today there was an article that came out. There were 20 Republican governors who came out en masse railing against the Biden policies, against the EPA mandates, against the pause on exporting natural gas, on all sorts of the pipelines, a long list. And every one of those demands made perfect sense to anyone who understands energy production, use, and the way that affects the economy. But 20 Republican governors, we know that our governor's not going to be on that list. We know that. But we need to really keep the pressure on all of that messaging. We cannot be beholden to OPEC. We should not be dependent on any other foreign energy at all. There is no reason for it except to make America weaker. That is not our job as Americans, as legislators, as citizens. We need to keep America strong, and we need to put America first. And the best way to do that is with a strong American energy policy. I have a pen that says American energy, American jobs for a reason. It's also American security and American freedom. And that's what we should be all focusing on at this moment in time, because it is a dangerous world out there. And when we are beholden to Russia for natural gas and to OPEC and Saudi Arabia for oil, we are in big trouble.
I think it's also important to note that today is the 35th anniversary of the massacre at Tiananmen Square, where the dictatorship in Beijing murdered thousands of citizens, college kids, who were protesting, demanding freedom. And that the communist gangsters in Beijing view energy correctly as an instrument of national power. This is why that dictatorship has committed to dominating the supply chain for solar panels, wind turbines, EV batteries. That it really comes down to American energy versus Chinese energy, and that with this so-called energy transition, we are being invited to join a race where we could run out of road. And that being dependent on a foreign power for technologies that we do not control the industrial inputs, it's foolhardy in the extreme. And we've already had enough economic and geopolitical damage to America's standing based on being naive about Beijing's intentions.
So I think something that American First elected officials and candidates and people in general, the base that we've seen now within our party, I would say, look, we got to get serious about winning elections. We got to start doing nuts and bolts, blocking and tackling, and winning elections. And at our level, at the state house level, that means getting after it, getting out there, recruiting candidates from day one. It means, raising resources, of course, for us. But at the committee levels, it means organizing. Because, the difference between Texas's Attorney General and Pennsylvania's Attorney General, there is one very stark difference in the party that they're with. And if we don't get serious about actually winning elections, it's fine for us to be out there and talking about it and to say the right things. But unless we win certain positions and win majorities in the state house and maintain majorities in the state senate, it's just going to be a voice out there that's not going to be able to effectuate any actual change. So what it boils down to is we need to understand how serious of a moment that we are in right now, how serious Pennsylvania is as the tip of the spear for the tug of war between the right and the left. And we need to get out there and get after it like our children's lives depend on it, because they do.
Yeah, I think it's simple. We shouldn't depend on foreign countries for much of anything. America First means looking to our own and protecting our own and supporting our communities. We have it right here in Pennsylvania. We have it in Texas. And so we can do everything we need to do right here in America. And so we've got to turn our focus to doing better and making sure that we provide our children the opportunity that we've had here in America and to be able to realize the American dream. And that all starts with America First.
So something that Ambassador Sands said earlier today was that energy security is national security. And I'm sure Ambassador Sands saw it during her service in Europe. We saw Europe being beholden to Russian energy imports. If you just look at the statistics, our dear friends in Europe have been the single largest purchaser of Russian energy since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. Since then, not before, but since then. And here in the United States, we need to be more forward-looking and think about how we can protect our own nation to avoid that kind of situation, not only in energy commodities, but also broader commodities, things like critical minerals, for example, for which, unfortunately, the Chinese Communist Party and the gangsters you referenced, David, have control over. Tell us more how we can achieve that.
Well, yes, and again, I think it comes down to viewing American energy strength and American industrial strength as being instruments of national power and defending our national security. Ultimately, our freedom depends upon our means of defending it. And to put it in perspective, Putin's entire government depends on the sale of energy exports. He's deployed a domestic nuclear fleet to power his domestic economy so that there are more resources, more coal, more oil, more natural gas to sell into international markets. That they got the Germans dependent on cheap Russian natural gas as a means essentially of taking control of Germany's decision-making, Germany being the primary manufacturing power in Europe. And so, we should want to put our national interest first. We should want to maximize domestic energy production here in the U.S. We should want to recognize trade in particular as being something for allies. That we have been plundered by Chinese technological theft for decades, and that we've been played for chumps. It needs to stop, and the first and most important step is to defend our own interest, pursue our own interest, and in this particular case, it means maximizing domestic energy production. Absolutely.
Not only for use here in the United States, but for export as well. The Russian Federation earns its $866 million every single day through its energy exports. Every barrel of oil that comes from Russia, that comes from Iran, that comes from Venezuela is a lost opportunity for American producers.
And if I could just please add that during the Trump administration, that the federal government pursued that American interest with great passion, and that was one of the factors that made our economy during that time the best it's ever been.
And safest.
Liz, your thoughts?
Well, it's not only energy that keeps us safe and free. It's the ability to use our own resources, quadrupling them actually in the gas industry, and making not just the world a cleaner place, but right here in Pennsylvania in the last 20 years with natural gas and the technology that comes along with it, it's literally reduced emissions to the point it's like taking every car off the roads for 7 surrounding states for an entire year. That's wonderful news for our ecological friends. But when it comes to national security, it's not just national security with energy. When you can produce your own goods and not have to rely on a foreign country for Advil, for ibuprofen, for chips. Look what happened during COVID. You couldn't get cars because we couldn't have chips. There's a company in West Virginia, they can take any kind of waste carbon and create chips and other things from them. Why are we not doing that in America? We should be self-sustaining in every single way imaginable. And if we reduce the export of natural gas, if we reduce the exploration of really good, dependable energy and a solid grid, we're not going to have rolling brownouts, we're going to have rolling blackouts. And instead of reducing the need and the pressure on the grid, it's going to increase exponentially because we have data centers that are popping up everywhere. And this little thing called AI. It takes massive, massive amounts of energy. And we could provide that for those types of industries right here, right on the same property as any of those manufacturers or data centers or AI. And that's what we should be doing. We're being crippled at every level, and it starts with energy production.
Yeah, I think it really goes back to an initial point that was made here. What does this require to occur? What do we need to have happen? We need investment. So we need capital. And what drives capital? Well, capital is like water. It flows through the area of least resistance. Well, what's causing the resistance for capital to flow? Well, it's our regulatory environment. It's an administrative state in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's an administrative state in D.C., and I call the fourth headless branch of government that we've created over the last century. And it's just built up to a point where it has stifled investment because it's taken projects so long to get accomplished. There's so many hoops that you got to go through. Then, of course, what else stifles capital is tax policy. And so those two things in and of themselves, it's one of the reasons I think there was so much success within the Trump administration. What we saw during the Trump years was the focus on the regulatory reform and the focus on tax cuts. It's not rocket science. It takes political courage. There's forces that you have to overcome, of course, but it's not rocket science. I mean, capital is going to go to the place of least resistance, and we need to create an environment where there's less resistance so that we can have development and we can start extracting more energy and start manufacturing more.
Yeah, I mean, they've hit all the points there, and it's pretty simple. If we want to get serious here in Pennsylvania, then we need our governor to not talk out of both sides of his mouth. He can't tell one group one thing and another group another thing, right? We got a president who tends to talk about being for the American worker. I don't see it. He's leaving them behind. Our middle class is shrinking. People are struggling to make ends meet. And we have opportunity here in Pennsylvania. And I started with those comments, is the opportunity we have right here in this Commonwealth. We need to unleash Pennsylvania energy. And with that, we'll grow our middle class again. We will help our farmers. We'll help our middle class. We will help people make ends meet. And so bottom line is we got to get government out of the way. We got to get the bureaucrats out of the way. And we've got to unleash Pennsylvania energy.
So as Chair McMahon mentioned earlier, one of the great successes of the Trump administration was tax reform and getting government out of the way. So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the most monumental reform to our federal tax code in decades, signed into law by President Trump in late 2017, not only cut taxes for every single tax bracket, but actually generated more tax revenue, because the incredibly smart economists, I say, are also on staff at AFPI, the likes of Kevin Hassett, the chair of our academic board of overseers. They recognized that when businesses, firstly, when individuals have more money in their pocket, that's the main thing. They can spend it on what they want to spend it on. But when businesses have more money, they're able to hire additional workers, which is so important. They're able to invest in capital and expand their businesses. That generates wealth. And that produces more revenue that we can use to fund our military and to pay down our debt that is off the charts at the moment. I want to go around the circle and talk about tax reform proposals that we can use here in the Commonwealth to spur that kind of change. David, your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that's under discussion right now is getting rid of the startup penalty. The Pennsylvania tax law, when it comes to the way that we treat business losses and their application to future tax liability, Pennsylvania is an extreme outlier. We're one of only 2 states to be below the IRS level and the level in every other state. And so this is really hurting startup businesses and cyclical businesses in Pennsylvania. We have a pitifully low startup rate exactly because we're one of the only jurisdictions where investors would not be able to apply those losses when a business would finally get on its feet and become profitable again. We're an extreme outlier. That needs to be addressed in a very urgent manner.
Yeah, I would agree. Our net operating loss provisions got to be top priority if we want to see investment in manufacturing. So my district is on the border of Ohio and West Virginia. Shell Petrochemical built a $14 billion investment in my district. And so at first it was going to be $6 billion, but then I got elected and it became $14 billion. Not really. It's probably inflation, actually, that drove that. But what we're finding is a lot of downstream opportunity from that plant, and there usually is within the petrochemical industry. And a lot of investors that I have spoken to have said our net operating loss provisions, what David was just talking about, the ability to carry forward your losses over years, is detrimental. And they're going to Ohio, they're going to West Virginia. So we asked the question, why are we losing to Ohio? Well, there's one of the one of the major reasons. The other issue is, and we started this process last cycle, and we need to expedite the process of cutting our corporate net income taxes. We had one of the highest taxes in the nation at 9.9%. We've cut it since then, but it's cutting over time. And next decade, I believe it ends up at 4.9. Is that correct?
By the time that my middle schooler graduates from college, we'll have a rate as low as Indiana and South Carolina today.
And Indiana and South Carolina at that point won't have one, probably.
Correct.
Just judging by how things go. So I think we need to expedite that and hurry that up as well.
Yeah, just recently, the Senate passed some legislation to cut our state income tax from 3.07 to 2.8, and to eliminate the gross receipts tax on our energy bills. And it's hardworking Pennsylvanians who get to keep more money, more money in their paycheck, give less to government. Pennsylvania doesn't have a revenue problem. $45 billion rolling into this Commonwealth. We have a priority problem. And so let's give Pennsylvanians their money back. Let's let them decide what they're going to spend it on. And let's let our small business owners invest that money back into their businesses.
Again, the corporate net income tax is huge. It's huge. And we're trying to get the governor to agree to accelerate it, because that was also another campaign promise. But the net operating loss.
There were a lot of those.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of them. A whole lot. Shocking.
Bad memory.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anybody follows my Twitter, but I had some special words to say to the governor for 2 years leading up to his election about Reggie. He was riding the fence on Reggie so hard he had splinters in his. Anyhow, neither here nor there. But the net operating loss, right after COVID, I had legislation that would address just those people who were affected by closures in their businesses, so they could. It was just a waiver for a short amount of time for net operating loss forward and back, just like the federal government offers to businesses. We should take advantage of that also. It would have really helped a lot of those struggling, and many of those places closed down because they couldn't keep up. But the other thing that the Republican caucus in the Senate has talked about, yes, we have a $14 billion surplus, but that's so that we have, a great bond rating with our rainy day fund being much more flush. Also, if you've got savings, in your savings account, it's because you scrimped and you saved and all of those things. If there's money in the coffers of the government, it's because we taxed you too much. You deserve to get some of that back. So the Republican Senate caucus has said, okay, we want to give $3 billion back to the taxpayers. And again, with the comments you made about those tax initiatives, that's a good way to do it. Put some money back in the pockets of people who are really suffering today. Food costs are up, 34%. Gasoline costs up 40-some%. It's just on and on and on and on. And it's inflation, but it's also, we're printing money like it means nothing. And that's pretty much what's happening to our monetary system right now. It's monopoly money. So they're asking for a whole lot more of it for every single thing that the consumers use. So if we have a surplus of $14 billion in the government, we owe it to the taxpayers to give some of that money back to them right now. And that's what we plan to do.
Sensible tax policy from your lips to God's ears, please. So often the progressive left will use the environment as an excuse to push these wayward policies. And it's a false dichotomy. They'll say that capitalism is dirty and only socialism or progressive policies will protect the environment. Well, the America First policies of the Trump administration proved that wrong, for the fact that not only did the economy grow, did wages across the board for every group, for every race, for men and women raise and go higher, we also saw our air get cleaner. Our water got demonstrably cleaner, according to the EPA. We saw our emissions fall, our energy production surge, all that while getting wealthier. It wasn't a dichotomy. We were able to have it all. I want to turn back to David to get your thoughts on that shift and that belief that capitalism is dirty and that it's not possible to have a clean environment and a booming economy.
Yeah, I mean, it's very wrong-headed, and my friend Representative Kale has said that we need to have a reality-based conversation about energy policy. That so much of what folks on the left throw at us, really, it's more like a religious fanaticism than it is based on any kind of science or objective standard. Like, I was a little kid in the 70s, and I remember when every car belched black filth into the air and people just chucked garbage out the window because they felt like it. And as has been said, the statistics show the air is cleaner than it's been since we started measuring. The water has gotten cleaner. All these things are due in great part because of the discovery and the development of the Marcellus Shale and the deployment of clean-burning Pennsylvania natural gas. And I would say, furthermore, that private ownership is what establishes responsibility, and that that the late great commentator P.J. O'Rourke said that the socialist paradigm was the public toilet, that everybody uses it but nobody's responsible for it. In a system of private ownership, there's specific responsibility, and when you have companies or entities that deliberately pollute, of course they should be caught and punished and fined. But the idea of the gotcha mentality of the regulatory state rather than being a partner in compliance, that's very wrong-headed. And that, again, we need to embrace the kind of dynamism and prosperity that can come from an accelerating economy, because only then will we be wealthy enough to be able to pay for the extra things that will make the environment even cleaner.
So, and David's been a leader on this, and being around him for the last number of years has helped me think through these issues. We need to end the false dichotomy that we have to pick between our jobs and our environment. You mentioned that there's this decision that needs to be made, that whether we can manufacture and build here, or do we have to protect our environment, that the left kind of pushes forward as we go. It's actually quite the opposite. And what I mean is, the only way to realistically reduce our carbon emissions is to start using Pennsylvania energy, to start using American energy. Because when we're not using American and Pennsylvanian energy, we are just simply sending our coal across the ocean to China, to Indonesia, to Russia, to Vietnam, to places like that have zero regulations on it whatsoever. And pollution, carbon emission numbers have gone through the roof since we've stopped manufacturing in America. I don't hear AOC or anybody from that side of the party, from that side of the political spectrum, saying that we shouldn't be using cell phones anymore. I don't hear any of them complaining about the plastic that's on this microphone. I don't hear them complaining about computers, about cars, about stuff that they use every single day. Unless your plan is that we live in a hut or something like that and get rid of electricity production and lose 98% of our population, it is not realistic to do what they're saying we should be doing. And all that's happening is we're cloaking ourselves in green righteousness and sending the pollution overseas in China where it's being generated, and we're buying these goods and we feel good about it, but at the same time, pollution has gone through the roof. And the last time I checked, we live in the same world. The last time I checked, if we're just decreasing our ability to produce items and increasing the pollution in the net balance in China and Vietnam or Indonesia or Russia, and by the way, giving them more power over us because they're generating goods, if that's all we're doing, it's not a good thing. It might feel good. They might be able to beat their chest and say, rah, rah, I'm a green warrior. But at the end of the day, there's more emissions. And so if we really want to correct this problem, if that's what they believe is a problem, I think we need to start turning the tables on the left. We always have to field the question, well, do you take climate change seriously? I think we need to turn the tables. Do you take climate change seriously? Mm-hmm. Do you take carbon emissions being a problem seriously? Because if you did, you wouldn't be sending all of our jobs and our production over to China.
Yeah, clean, affordable, and reliable. That's Pennsylvania gas. That's Pennsylvania energy. Look, we all want to be good stewards of our environment, and our air has never been cleaner in Pennsylvania.
That's right.
Because of the gas industry. We have cut emissions by over 50% in this Commonwealth. And so, the argument that, gas is bad and that green energy is the way, it just doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold its muster. And so, bottom line is clean, affordable, reliable. That's Pennsylvania energy, and our air has never been cleaner.
One of my favorite sayings, and some of you may have seen it somewhere, maybe on a billboard, the Green New Deal is America's off switch. And that is exactly what it is. Those are not my billboards, by the way. Anyway, I hang out with a pro-energy group, and they throw quotes up. The first one was, "Stop the BS, you need fossil fuels to live." But I didn't BS, they shortened it. Anyway. But again, you cannot have green energy without fossil fuels. It doesn't happen. Where are we getting the majority of these solar panels? China. How many windmills does it take to make a windmill? You need steel. You need petrochemicals for the blades, which, by the way, are not recyclable. You see these huge fields of these cut up blades, and they're just pushing dirt over them. How is that better for the environment? There are some third world countries out there where people are dying at the ripe old age of 60 in some places because they're forced to use dung to heat with and to cook with. So the indoor pollution for these is because they're not allowed to have coal. Oh, coal is dirty, can't have coal. It's absurd. It's people who aren't thinking straight. And most recently, how many of you have read recently an article that just came out about the fact that fracking wastewater is where now they're finding lithium?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yes, thank you. But lithium, we have it now. And guess what? You can't have lithium to power your coal car, your electric car, and all of these other things that need massive, massive batteries. We can produce lithium right here. And how do you produce it? With the gas industry. It's an offshoot of the gas industry. We'll all be darned, environmentalists. What do you think about that? So it's just every argument that they come up with. And again, to Representative Scales' point, you see protesters protesting fossil fuels and natural gas and coal. They show up in a car. Mm-hmm. They're not riding a horse and buggy. They're using cell phones, and they didn't make their clothes out of hemp. So there's an issue with hypocrisy when it comes to that.
Oh, Senator, I am so in your corner on this. And again, I want the Greens to lead the way. If they think that somehow it's possible to live without petrochemicals and hydrocarbons, show us how. Show us how. It's like, oh, you're wearing sneakers. The rubber of the soles. Did you create a canoe and paddle to Indonesia and cut down a rubber tree plant? No. Oh, that's a synthetic rubber. That's a petrochemical product. I just again, a reality-based conversation about how our modern society is upheld by our production, by our manufacturing, by our energy, all these things that make modern life clean and safe and comfortable and convenient.
Yeah, just like I'd like to see the pro-Palestinian protesters go visit Palestine.
Yeah,
right? That would be an interesting situation. Look, I think we find ourselves once again in Pennsylvania in such a unique position. The Industrial Revolution, coal, steel, what happened here, Western Pennsylvania, across the entire Commonwealth. We changed the world. We saved the world in World War I and World War II with our production, with our ability to generate the steel for tanks. And now we find ourselves again with all the solutions to the world's problems, whether it's jobs, whether it's lower cost on energy, whether it's national security, whether it's our allies' security, whether it's our environment. Pennsylvania energy makes the world a better place. And we can once again become the keystone of this nation.
That, I think, is a fantastic note to end on. Prosperity, jobs, workers, the lot. We can do it here in Pennsylvania with these sensible America First solutions. So, folks, let's put our hands together for a warm thank you to the panelists.